So I definitely have lots of follow-up questions for those members of esteemed audience who haven't just enjoyed So Done. That's the novel we're talking about for the moment. If you wouldn't mind, give esteemed audience kind of an overview of what they need to know about So Done so we can talk about it.
So Done is about two friends, and it's a friendship story, but a friendship at a crossroads. They have been friends for many, many years, and the one friend has returned from visiting her aunt for the summer, and the other friend is very excited to have her back and doesn't quite understand why her friend is not quite as excited to be back home. This is a wedge between them, the fact that Mila wants to move away and Tay doesn't understand why she doesn't love their neighborhood as much as she does. And what we find out eventually is that there's a secret that Mila has been holding, and it's a burden on her, and it has to do with Tay's father. And it's one of the reasons why she wants to move away. And it's something that she is trying to contend with in her own way without having to reveal it to anybody. And it's something that Tay kind of feels might have something to do with, but she's not quite sure, and she sort of discounts it. So it's about a friendship that is trying to figure out whether it will continue to be a friendship, but it's also about the importance of not keeping secrets. And it's a very heavy issue, but I hope that the way that I've dealt with it, still the focus of the story is their friendship and how they're both groping with this change, that are dealing with this change that they're going through.
So I fell in love with that girl, Tay, immediately. She made me laugh multiple times, and yet as the story progressed, I started to see things from Mila's perspective. I'm like, you know what? Maybe if Mila wanted to go on and have some new friends, and I could feel like I wasn't sure which way the story was going to go. And obviously, if you didn't have a preconceived idea, there weren't necessarily hints, but there were hints that you start dropping early about this thing that's happened between Mila and Tay's father, without spoiling. So there had to be a little bit of plotting in there for you to know that, or did you go back and start hinting at that once you figured it out? That was that second draft and third draft type stuff.
I swear to you, I just don't plot. It's all about the character. It's all about, does it feel right for this character? What would I do if I were this character and I wanted this and this was in my way? It was all of that. Now I will say this. Mila is mentioned in my young adult series because that contains her older sister, Jacinta, who we only see very little bit in So Done. But one of the things that I always knew about Mila and which helped to drive the story, which is why I didn't have to plot it out, was I always knew that she and Tay had sort of this little bit of friction in their friendship because Tay is so bossy. And so it was really about kind of peeling the layers back on, well, why is she so bossy? And we start to see why Tay is the way she is. You know, she's being raised by her grandmother. Has this father who is, you know, right in the middle of Arrested Development. I mean, he's irresponsible. He uses drugs. You know, we see these things and we start to understand, you know, maybe why she's so defensive all the time, why she perhaps is trying to always control her friendship because there's so many other things in her life that she can't control. When I know those kind of things about a character, it makes it, I don't want to say easy, but it makes it a little more organic for me to develop a story around them because they are acting on their own, but then how they act, their friends are going to react to that. And I just keep playing off of the characters, you know, I just keep making them clash or making them get along, which is going to make somebody else upset. I mean, it's just like a typical middle school friendship. That's what I wanted to put on display.
Amazed, because the conflict never stops, the ball never drops. Every chapter keeps the story going. I didn't get to the part where this kind of meandered out of here. I guess the author didn't have a plan. It never feels like that. So how many drafts are you doing to make it 100% cohesive? Or are you Mozart and you do the one draft, the notes are all perfect, and then you walk away?
No perfection is involved, but I do tend to be a pretty tight writer. I do tend to only have a single draft that I then send off to a freelance editor who I've been using the same freelance editor for years. And she's edited almost all of my books. I don't think she did 3 of my series books, because by then I knew the character so well that I just went on. But so it's a first draft. It's to her. She tells me what she thinks. She gives me her thoughts. There's usually that second draft that I base my notes on, and then I send it to my publisher. And then if she has any notes, then maybe there's a third draft. But usually, because I use an outside editor, I don't usually need a third draft. It's usually just kind of copy edit stuff by then. But honestly, I don't want to call it a luxury, but because I have a day job, I work really hard to make sure that that story is finished when it's finished. I don't really have time to dwell on it a lot because, I have the deadline that's driving me and I need to move on. Like I hate to say it like I'm ADD, but I've got to move on. So I write pretty tight. It's not perfect by any means, but it's usually tight enough that my editor doesn't have a lot. She may have some, I question this, are you sure about that? But I usually don't have like big gaping holes, like what in the world were you doing right here? So, so far anyway, knock wood.
Sure.
Knock wood. So, it's coming though, it's coming.
How much do you have to provide to get on contract? How much do you actually have to have on paper before you know that you've got a thing that, even though you don't have a full plot or whatever, you're going to get to a certain point presumably by the time you have to turn in the book to meet your contract?
You mean when I'm presenting it to my publisher?
Yeah. What do you present them with?
So Done was completely finished when Green Willow purchased it. So it wasn't a pitch or anything like that. It was completely done. And then they offered Doughboys. So it was a 2-book contract based solely on So Done, and me saying to my editor, and I think I want to do a story that focuses the lens on the 2 boys. And she was like, okay. So she just knew it was going to be about the 2 boys. She had no idea. My editor is very trusting, and I love her.
You must have earned that trust at this point, though, because this isn't your first rodeo.
It's not, but it is hard for me to write a book at this point in my career, right? It's hard for me to write a book just for me. Because what I'm trying to do is continue to establish myself as a writer. And so right now, like when I'm not under contract, because I've turned in the last book under the current contract, that's why I'm like, okay, I have this pitch idea and let's see if we can sell it just based on a proposal. I want to do that because I can write the book, but I'd rather write it knowing that I'm going to be paid for the book. So if no one bites on the proposal, then, that gives me the freedom to, now I can finish it as, I can take as long as I want. I haven't had that situation for a while, so it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but yeah.
Yeah, but getting paid's great.
Getting paid's pretty great.
Big fans of that on this show.